Welcome back to Body Beyond the Scales, a podcast that helps you get stronger and more confident in your body through building better habits. Today we have got a Q&A and a cup of tea episode. So if you're watching this, then you'll see the cup of tea. If you're listening to this, then you'll just be like, that was a strange thing to say, Holly. But we're going to be talking all about, we're going to be answering your questions whilst I drink my peppermint tea. And we might have a little bit of a chat as well and a little bit of a catch up. So let's get into it. Let's answer some questions and get chatting. So the first question that we're going to be answering is why you sometimes overeat when there's no real valid reason for it, and what you can do about it instead. So overeating is something that a lot of people experience, and it's something I know I've experienced. I've got friends that have experienced it, and most of the people that I work with on a one-to-one basis or through the consistency games have experienced overeating in some capacity. So it's something that's a very much, I guess, I don't want to use the word normal because I don't feel like normal is necessarily the right word, but it's a very common experience. Now, the first thing when you start to overeat that I want you to think about is, why am I overeating? And I don't want you to approach that with judgment and judge yourself for overeating. I want you to approach it with curiosity. So why are you overeating? And what's going on in your situation? What's happening here and now? What's happened earlier on in the day? How are you feeling? What happened in the lead up to that bout of overeating? All of that just allows you to collect data and start to understand the situation a little bit more. And when you approach it with curiosity, you kind of give yourself a little bit of permission to figure out what's going on. If we approach it with you shouldn't have just done that, you start beating yourself up and it becomes a very negative experience. We don't want to see it as a negative experience per se. We want to see it as something that is neutral and that we can work through. One of the first things I like to identify whenever I get the urge to overeat or I get the urge to eat is this hunger or is it a craving? Now, hunger, you can feel that in your belly, you can feel that in your body. That is a feeling of like you're getting the hunger pangs. You might feel like you're low blood sugared. You might feel like you are, your belly might be growling. You are experiencing it physically. Cravings, however, can still be experienced physically, but they won't be experienced the same as hunger. Cravings, sometimes I will find that I feel them in my mouth, and I can be like, I want something in my mouth. Yep, I want something in my mouth. Get your mind out of the gutter. I want something in my mouth. It's something that I don't necessarily, I don't want food in my belly. It's not that I am hungry. I don't feel empty. That's not the issue. Sometimes I will feel cravings in I will feel it in my chest, which sounds like a bit of a weird thing to say, but I will feel it there instead of feeling it in my stomach, which says to me that is not hunger. It says to me that it's a craving. So distinguishing the difference can help us to identify what's going on. If it's hunger, you want to ask yourself, well, why am I hungry? Is it that you've not eaten a big enough meal at lunchtime? Is it that you've not eaten a big enough meal, or rather the time that you are feeling this craving? Is it that you've not eaten enough throughout the day? Is it that you are due for food soon? Is it that you are, you've not eaten a meal that was packed with protein and fiber? And if you are hungry, the way you want to deal with that is with foods that make you feel full. Pringles, for example, do not make you feel full. Pringles are low in fiber, they're low in protein. They're not foods that will make you feel full. You probably have to eat the whole tube to feel full. So you really want to address if you are hungry and you are feeling that sensation with hunger, after we've approached it with curiosity, we go, maybe I am hungry. Fix the hunger first. If it's a craving and you're like, actually, no, I'm feeling it in my mouth, I'm feeling it in my chest, I'm feeling it in my body, but I'm not feeling it necessarily as hunger, this is not a hunger issue, then ask yourself, well, where is this coming from? Is it that I have got, so for me often, if I find that I am craving something and I'm getting that feeling in my mouth, often I'm thirsty. So I'll go, okay, well, when was the last time that I drank water? Oh, actually, it was a few hours ago. I'm due for a cup of tea. So then I'll go have a drink. I might, one thing that I make sure that I do at every mealtime is I have a drink at that mealtime. And that's a really easy way just to get more water in throughout the day. Another thing that you can do if it's a craving is just get curious around like I said, what's gone on around that event. And if you can then ask yourself actually, I have just had a really stressful, 10 minutes ago, I had a really stressful phone call. What now all of a sudden I want food? Actually, chances are what's happened is I'm not hungry. I am stressed, and now my body is trying to alleviate that stress. It's trying to give me something to make me feel better. And I know that I'll get a quick dopamine hit from having some Pringles, a Curly Whirly, whatever you're having. So I don't know why I'm on Curly Whirlies. If you listen to the episode either last week or a few weeks ago where I was talking about Curly Whirlies all the time, but yeah, we can come up. I don't even like Curly Whirlies that much. But yeah, if you are getting that craving for a food and it's coming after a time that you have been stressed, actually what we need to do is alleviate that stress. Especially if you are like craving something that's like a high fat, high sugar, high salt food, we want to make sure that we're not necessarily just going straight to consume that straight away. We want to ask, why are we feeling that we're having that craving? Like, what's going on first? You might also find that it might be tiredness. So if you are feeling tired, what can you do about that? And I would say food comes further down the pecking order in terms of like what you can do to actually alleviate tiredness. Sleep is the obvious one, but I appreciate that sometimes 3 p.m. in the afternoon you can't exactly go for a nap. So the thing that you might want to do instead is you might want to do an exercise snack. So literally just move your body for a minute, jump up and down, do some star jumps, do some squats, do some push-ups against the kitchen counter. I do that when I'm making cups of tea. I'll just be like, right, let's just do some push-ups now. All of this helps, and it really just makes sure that you are moving your body and it re-energizes you. Get outside, see some natural light, get yourself out for a walk. Any sort of movement is really, really useful because it will just re-energize you. And also you can do something as well if you want to like just give yourself a little bit of a break for 5 minutes. Often when it comes to 3 p.m, if you've worked through your lunch, you've been working since 9 o'clock, 8 o'clock in the morning, and you are tired. Like, you need to have some energy. What you need is a break. So just go give yourself 15 minutes and just like get outside for 15 minutes, especially because the weather at the moment is getting much nicer. Go sit out in the garden, go do some star jumps in the garden, but like going and giving your body that energy first. So what I'm trying to get at here in terms of like the hunger, the cravings, if you find yourself overeating, get curious around why. Get curious around what's going on and fix the issue that you're experiencing. This is not it's often not that you physically need food, especially if you're getting a craving for something hyper palatable. It's not actually a drive for food most of the time. It is a craving for something else. You are wanting that, and get in touch with your feelings. Another useful thing that you can do is get yourself a copy, or even just have it on your phone, of the feelings wheel. If you just type feelings wheel into Google, it'll come up. But basically it's a big wheel and it helps you express your feelings and get more in contact with your emotions and give you better language to use. The more language that you have, the better in touch you can be. I think one thing that's a skill that I have learned as a grown-up and not as a child is how to communicate my emotions more effectively. I will say I don't think I've ever had bad emotional communication, but I think it's a lot better now than what it ever has been. And I attribute that to learning better words to express my emotions and getting better at communicating. And that's something that's really helped me with emotional eating, is being able to emotionally regulate, but also understand the emotions in the first place, and understand that actually I am feeling angry, but I'm not necessarily feeling angry. I'm feeling distressed, and just understanding those sections. If you've never seen the feelings wheel before, basically it will have your bog standard emotions on the inside, like happy, sad, angry, and then it will break it down into other categories which are more specific versions of that, so you can find the right language for your words. There's another app as well. There's an app called How We Feel, and How We Feel is such a fantastic app because you can check in and log, and it gives you again more words for the emotions, and it allows you to figure out what emotional state you are in. I am a huge advocate for How We Feel because I just think it's such a great app, and it's completely free. I'm pretty sure it's ad free as well. 10 out of 10 app, and it's a really useful way to just get in touch with your emotions. So if you find that maybe you've not got the language, or even if you think you've got the language, I'd still advise doing something like How We Feel, especially if you're doing that around times of stress. You can then identify and have the better language to express how you are feeling. So when it comes to cravings, the first and most important thing is just to approach it with curiosity. But after that, you want to figure out what you're actually fixing. Is it going to be, and how you are going to fix that in the most effective way. And a lot of the time it does come down to the emotional regulation stuff. It doesn't come down to I just needed to eat more. So next question, another one on kind of a similar tone, but the question was, how do I know that I am eating enough? Now, I love this as a question because I think a lot of the time, especially as women, we're told that our goal is weight loss, and the only kind of option that I felt for a long time, especially for myself, was that weight loss was the only option. The only time women worry about their health is when they are losing weight, and they think that that's the only thing. And I am such a big advocate now for having health goals outside of weight, because I think it's just so important, and to have things to focus on outside of weight loss, because maintenance, especially if you do lose weight, but maintenance is a long journey, ideally the rest of your life. So if you have something that you enjoy doing, you have a reason to keep exercising, you have a reason to keep eating nutritious food, and you have that focus, it's much easier. So having having an understanding around like what goes on outside of weight loss, I think is so important because it gives you a little bit of an eye opener to the world of maintenance. So let's talk about how you know if you're eating enough. Well, the first question is, well, what is your goal? If your goal is to lose weight, fundamentally, you cannot be eating enough because otherwise you wouldn't lose weight. However, let me make some clear points here. Eating enough is such a like loose term in the sense that like you don't necessarily have the specifics of eating enough suggests that you'd be hungry, but that's not always the case. In order to lose weight, you need to have an energy deficit. Calories in need to be lower than calories out. That is a fundamental fact that we know to be true. Therefore, you are not eating enough to sustain the amount of activity that you are doing, the amount of calories that you are burning. And therefore, your body uses its stored energy, its body fat that it has, and other stored energy to power you for the missing calories. And we know that that's how it works. Like that is as far as the scientific consensus has at the moment, that is how it works. Fundamentally, energy cannot be created or destroyed, so therefore it must come from something else if it can't be created or destroyed. So we know that to be true. Therefore, you are not eating enough in that sense. However, like I said, that doesn't necessarily not mean that you are full. So if your goal is weight loss, you need to be in a calorie deficit. However, if your goal is maintenance, eating enough means that you are eating to like match your caloric needs. If your weight is still decreasing over a period of time, no, you are not eating enough if your goal is to maintain. So understanding what your goal is really key here, and understanding what the goal is within that. Now, let's say you are losing weight, because I want to make sure that we give this as an example on what I mean by like, eating enough. Whenever it comes to dieting, I always suggest that we diet on as many calories as possible. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean that we need to keep calories like super high or super low, then go for a small deficit. That's not it at all. But like, if we can, like, I'd rather keep you eating more food than less food. And for a lot of people, like that number will vary for a lot of people. For some people, as many calories as possible might be 1,300, 1,400 calories. For other people, it might be 2,200. I think the highest person I have ever worked with was 2,400. And for them, that was basically in 1,000 calorie deficit. But like, that was still the highest number of calories like as possible, because for them, they were eating a high amount of protein and fiber. And therefore, after 2,400 calories, they couldn't eat anymore. Like, they were full. So it's important to recognize that like what makes up your food will determine, are you like eating enough? So let's go back to that weight loss example and say that you do want to lose weight. I would make sure that you are eating and you are not hungry, and that will make it feel like you are eating enough, because again, enough is such a subjective thing, and I think it comes down to the terms of, well, how do we feel in our body? So if we want to make sure that we are eating like until we're not hungry, we're going to have to take something into account called volume eating, and all this means is you want to eat as much low calorie, high volume food as possible. So fruit and veg is a really good example of this. It takes up a lot of space in your stomach for not that very many calories. Imagine your stomach as a beaker. If you put in it a load of like spinach, the spinach would fill the beaker on fewer calories than it would if you put a load of chocolate in there. So let's say, for example, it took 500 calories to fill your stomach in chocolate, but it only took 300 calories. I wouldn't even say that. They say it took 150 calories to fill your stomach with spinach. Spinach is high volume. The stomach is full. That fullness is then sent to the brain, and the brain goes, oh yeah, we're full. We don't need to eat anymore. Versus if you ate lots of high calorie, low volume food, which would be something like, well, any of these hyperpalatable foods, so foods high in sugar, fat, salt, any of these things tend to be hyperpalatable and tend to be calorie dense. So what we want is basically to eat more calorie sparse foods, to volume eat. So the more volume you can get in, the better. That's why fruit and vegetables at meal times are so useful, because it just allows for you to eat more food and feel full and get that feeling of fullness in your stomach with fewer calories. So really think, when it comes to your food, are you getting in a high volume of food? The next thing I want you to think about is protein. Now, protein is so useful because basically it slows down your rate of digestion, or rather it takes longer to digest, therefore it stays in your stomach for longer, which makes you feel fuller for longer. So when it comes to eating enough, we want to make sure that you are feeling full. Therefore, if we can get lots of these voluminous foods in, and we can get lots of protein in, you will feel like you are eating enough. You could probably eat 1,500 calories and feel full. You could eat 1,500 calories and feel full versus 2,500 calories, 2,500 calories and not feel full, purely on the basis of what you have eaten. This is why it's really important that we don't just focus on calories. It's not about like the number of calories that you eat per se. It's about the quality of those calories as well. These are just as important when it comes to weight loss, because it means we can be consistent with things. Now, just to go back to the conversation of enough, I also want you to think about your body. If you are feeling tired, if you are feeling run down, if you are finding you're picking up a lot of illnesses, if you are finding that you are picking up injuries, all of these can be a sign. If you're not sleeping very well as well, that's another sign. All of these can be a sign that you are maybe not eating enough and we want to increase your calories. Now, for some people, increasing your calories might mean going back up to maintenance for a little bit. And that's all right. That's something that I've done with quite a few one-to-one clients, where we've just brought everything back up to maintenance, and it's just allowed for their body just to like recover and chill out. Dieting and being in a calorie deficit is a stress on the body. It is fundamentally something that the body does not want to do, because it still thinks that it's living in a period of time where your body's basically programmed to survive, and it thinks that you're living in a period of time where food is not always going to be available, because you've over the last 11,000 years, or like however long, I think that's human evolution was 11,000 years, at least for like the most modern humans. Like, in that sense, we are so, like, the majority of our history has come from a period of famine with low food availability. We now have such a high amount of food availability, particularly coming from the last 50 years. Our bodies evolutionary have not developed to be in this environment per se. So we really want to ask ourselves, how are we feeling in our bodies? Like, and how does your body feel? If you are finding that you are run down all of the time and other things are in check, so say for example, you are getting enough sleep, you are like managing your stress well, and all of these things are taken into account, then it might actually just be that you need to increase your calories a little bit for maybe a period of time, or even just diet on more calories. And that can be a really useful way to actually just re-energize yourself. And going up to maintenance is not a bad thing. You'll see a little jump in the scale at the start, and that's normal. That's just your stores filling back up again. But after that, it'll just level itself back out again. I've worked with people and we have gone up to maintenance, spent a little bit of time at maintenance, and then brought them back down again. And it has been the most effective thing that we have done for their long-term weight loss. You can't panic when you hit, like, when you go into maintenance, because ultimately this is the end goal. We want to be at maintenance. So a little bit of practice there is not a bad idea. And also you're going to eat more food. So like, yeah, it's a win all round. All right, on to the next question then. So I'm struggling to fit everything in within my time commitments and my life and my family. What can I do? Well, I think the first thing to consider is there any wiggle room? Is there like any time that like actually you've got to spare where time has been like wasted, and actually it's just an organization and a time planning thing? For some people it will be. It'll just be a case of we need to just move things around, and actually in reality it can be, it can be achieved. Another thing that you could ask yourself is there anywhere that I can ask for help? If you are finding that you are say you are doing the school run, for example, and you are the only person doing the school run, is there potential that you could ask for help with that? One really good example here, if you don't have family nearby, is there another parent where you could do the school pickup on Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and they do Tuesday, Thursday, or some sort of like variation of that, where like you then get the night to like you have a little bit more time to then do your workout. What you would have done on the school run, you can now spend 20 minutes working out, and that's going to get you a 20-minute workout in that you otherwise wouldn't have achieved at 2 days a week, 3 days a week. So remember to like use the people around you and like ask for help if you need help within that. Like, I think we forget, ultimately, I didn't intend for this to talk so much about like evolution in this perspective, but like ultimately we are part of the tribe. Use your tribe around you, like whether that be, friends at school, whether that be like people from work, like whether that be your husband, your partner, your wife, like whoever it is, like use your community around you and let it help you. We are a tribal species, like, and that is okay. You can ask for help from your tribe. And sometimes using that, it's just a question of, well, we need to ask, and we need to ask for help, and that's okay. And that can allow, and that can create more time. But sometimes we need to just look at like what's going on in our lives and see if that's a possibility. The next thing that you might want to do as well is ask yourself what's reasonable. Now, a lot of the time we get obsessed with the idea of what's optimal, and we think, oh, well, I need to be working out 3 times a week. I need to be doing 10,000 steps per day. I need to be cooking everything from scratch. And I often say to my clients, like, what's optimal versus what's practical? And optimal is, yeah, in a perfect world, we would do this. But practical is, well, that's not going to happen right now because that's just not reality within your life. So you might be really busy and overwhelmed with fitting everything in. So what's practical within your life right now? What can we fit in? What can you achieve? And just asking yourselves like questions like this allows you to approach it from a perspective rather than this is everything I'm not doing. Well, actually, this is everything I can fit into my life right now. If you are burnt out, you are of no use to anyone and you will not be consistent. So what we don't want to do is overfill your cup. We don't want you spilling out. We want you to be able to stick to things consistently and manage things. And if that is leading to overwhelm, then that's not ideal, nor is it sustainable. You can also set yourself the expectation and go, okay, well, this is what I want to do. But if something happens, say the kids get sick, you're taking care of your elderly parents, you are doing something, that means that then you just need to have an approach to allow for wiggle room, which is what we want. We need to be flexible within our approach. And that's where the next best thing comes in. So if you can't be perfect, what's the next best thing that you can do? So you can't do your workout. You had an hour workout planned. Great. Can you do 30 minutes, 20 minutes? What can you do? What can you do? Like, do something. And just having that approach just allows for you to it allows you to figure things out and make it make the most sense like within your life and still get things done even when you can't be perfect. And that's really what we're aiming for. We're aiming for consistency, and we're aiming for, as I've spoken about before, steady seas, not stormy seas. Stormy seas are where we're constantly up and down from all to nothing, all to nothing. We want steady seas. I'm all right if you are like middling at like 80%. Like, you are not perfect, but you are practical. Like, you are doing what is feasible within your life. And when we're just like kind of dealing with the waves, there's ups and downs, but like those ups and downs are not super dramatic. It's not constantly a storm. So ask yourself what you can actually do, what you can fit in, and what you can feasibly fit within your life. And then when you have that plan, when you can't do it like that, do the next best thing. And there's always options. You can always fit something in. So figure out what that is and figure out what's reasonable within your life. And that's okay if it's just okay for this season. It doesn't have to be perfect. Like, you can just do, something can work for this season. It might be whilst your kids are in like primary school, like you do this, and then when you're in secondary school, you go into a different routine, and then when you've got grown-up kids, you do a different thing altogether. Work out what works for this season of your life, and then recognize that some seasons are going to be trickier than others to navigate. Okay, so final question. I lost weight through weight loss medication and now I'm overwhelmed about maintaining it. What should I do? So the first thing that I want to highlight here is that weight loss maintenance is the same regardless of whether you lost it through diet alone, whether you lost it through a gastric band, whether you lost it through a weight loss medication. It is the same over and over and over again. It is the same. Studies have showed that it is the same. Weight loss maintenance, the rules don't change. So what we want to do is make sure that you have got the right habits in place, the habits and behaviours of weight loss maintainers. Now, one caveat I will make to that sentence is if you have just used weight loss medication and you haven't made any habitual changes, you will have to do the education around what makes you feel full. For the last however long you've been on weight loss medication, your body has been made to feel full without having to think about protein and fibre. So unless we address protein and fibre and make sure that you understand how to feel full fundamentally and you know what meals make you feel full, you're going to struggle to maintain this because you're just going to be in the same eating habits. This is why, like, I think if you are using GLP-1s, that is completely fine. But if you're not making habitual changes, it's not going to work. It's not going to stick. I think it's really important that we have a realistic perspective on this. Like, it's not magic, and you still need to have the same behaviors like of other people, whether you use GLP-1s or not. Like, you still need to do the work. So yeah, thanks for coming to my TED Talk. Let's talk a little bit about those behaviours, but I want to just highlight I have done a full episode on this and you can check it out. I think this was 2 episodes ago. I'll link it anyway on basically losing weight and maintaining weight, whether you're using GLP-1s or not. Like, so just go check out that whole deep dive. But the overview of this is maintaining your weight loss is going to require you to, the main thing that you want to think about is going to be muscle mass. If you have not done any strength training throughout your weight loss, what I would really suggest is that you start now. You want to start building that muscle back up again. When you've lost lost weight, you will have lost muscle mass, you will have lost muscle quality. Therefore, we want to, well, rather, you will have lost muscle mass and you won't have had the good quality muscle there in the first place. So we want to make sure that you are building that muscle back up again, because that is going to increase your metabolic rate. Muscle is more expensive for your body to keep around than fat. It burns more calories per kilogram than what a kilogram of fat does. So it's really important that we have as much muscle around as possible, not from just a caloric perspective, but from a life perspective. Your quality of life will be better if you have more muscle mass. And to do that, you want to be strength training and progressively overloading. All that means is I want you to lift weights and I want you to make those weights heavier each week or do an extra rep each week. Just make things harder over time. The next thing to consider, and I've mentioned this already, is things like hunger and fullness cues. So really get in tune with your body and start to understand what does hunger feel like and what does fullness feel like, especially if you are coming off GLP-1s and you are no longer being appetite suppressed. So understanding hunger and fullness is another key habit that I would consider during this time, and that will really help you with maintaining it. The next thing to think about is energy expenditure. So how many steps are you doing? Again, from an energy expenditure perspective, the steps are very useful. However, from a just general health perspective, energy expenditure, steps are very useful. So it's really worth getting those steps in. Like, consider how you can get them in and get them up from what you're currently doing. And I've mentioned this already in one of the earlier questions, but volume eating. So just making sure you're eating plenty of high volume foods. Again, this will help with the fullness. And if you can get plenty of protein in, that's going to give you the building blocks to help you build more muscle, which is going to make it easier for you to build more muscle from all the strength training that you're going to be doing. And that's it for the questions today. But since I've not finished my cup of tea yet, I did have a question for you. And this is completely not related to weight loss. And I would just love to know, because I have been searching the internet everywhere for some prints with Taylor Swift lyrics on. And I would love some just basic prints. And I want them to go on the wall. If you're watching this, the wall at the back of here. I've got 3. I've got the photo frames for them. I just can't find any prints. If anyone has found some nice Taylor Swift themed prints, I would love for you to send me them across. Especially if they're lyric prints. I want them to be subtle, if you know, you know, if you don't, you don't kind of prints. But they're still pretty and working with the vibes. I've got a vision that there will be 3 in the background here. So that's my tea for today. And yeah, please let me know in the comments to the episode, or just drop me a message on Instagram or something. And just, yeah, please, if you've found somewhere, especially if it's a small business, holler at me. We love that. So yeah, Jules and I have been looking and I can't find anything anywhere. So if you've got some that you like, or you've seen some in the past that you like, please send me them across. But otherwise, any questions that you've got, any questions that you want me to answer in a Q&A episode, please do just ping me a message, or you can email me, holly@hollymillsfitness.com. And yeah, I will answer your questions in a future episode. We will have another Q&A. And yeah, otherwise, if you've enjoyed the episode, please make sure that you hit subscribe or follow for the show, and I will catch you in the next one.